Mark, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here. This is one that I remember discussing this over 2 years ago, and it's finally come to fruition, and I'm really, really excited to
Me
finally have
too.
you on.
No, I remember talking about it, and I remember you saying that there was a greater purpose that you had inside of yourself, and one of those was to actually speak more about hopefully some of the subjects we're going to talk about today, and reach more people. So I'm delighted to be invited on. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to get straight stuck into it. Why is vision so important for high performers?
Do you know, I've come across so many people that don't have a vision. There's two sides of it, right? There's people that have a vision that they tell everybody and they don't articulate it in detail, and they drift from one thing to the other, right? So people will say to you, no, I have a vision. I'm like, but is there detail to it? And so everybody who is entrepreneurial or high performer will get somewhere because it's in their DNA to just push hard. But we have these phases where we drift and we get disconnected. We see things. We see other people having success in something or doing something, and then we change course a little bit. And that can send you off course for 6 months, 7 months, 12 months. I mean, it can, I myself have had multiple times where I've seen people doing things and gone, ugh. And I remember years ago, I say, right, as in the direction shift. And I remember years ago saying to my late father, Dad, why do you never get distracted by anybody? Like, why? I know obviously social media wasn't a thing for him. I was like, why doesn't what everybody else, what they do bother you? And he goes, I'm so clear on where I'm going, Mark. Nothing can derail me. And I was like, well, this is amazing, because I've been studying the whole thing about vision planning and trying to get coaches to do it for years. And I think I can just wrap it up by saying that it's your North Star. Like, to me, a vision planner, me and my wife, we sit down, we talk, we articulate, we put details. Some people vision plan with vision boards. Some people actually write it out. And the funny thing is, if you do 2 paragraphs of a vision plan, it's kind of like, if you do a page, it's okay. If you do 2 pages of written detail as to the architecture of what you want your life to look like, anybody listening to this right now or watching, could you pull out a piece of paper or a vision board or a document that actually maps out the next stage of 1 to 2 years of your life, that actually has so much detail to it that it makes you almost cry, that it's exciting? And I feel that every man has a responsibility to his partner to discuss that, because if you're waking up every single day to take the kids to school and get up and do your job, but there's no architecture there. There's no, like, if you're going to build a house, there's architecture. If you're going to create a physique or run a marathon, there's architecture to what you're doing. Like, everything we want in life, 9 times out of 10, there's a plan, apart from your bloody life. So I believe that people drift through life, or entrepreneurs and they're very driven because they have a goal, they shoot towards a goal, but what's the actual plan? What's the vision? And so for me, it comes back to it being a North Star, a compass, a direction with clear milestones. And it gives you the opportunity a year, 2, 5 years down the line to almost be able to speak as if it's happened. And I say it's 2026, December. We finally got a chalet. We're on holiday in a chalet in Switzerland with the children, and it's the most beautiful. Sun is shining. The snow is pouring. Snow's all over the mountains. And I finally got this chalet opportunity with family. And that freaking thing's part of my vision. But I look at chalets, I think about trips with the holiday, the family and all going together, and it lights my heart up. But the funny thing is that intention to get there, whether it's however much it's going to cost to be there, fills me with excitement, because then I reverse engineer, how do you make it happen? And so I feel that the every month and every 6 months and every year is filled with excitement, because I know where I'm going. And it's detailed and articulated. And I think that that's why it's so important. And to anybody that says, yeah, whatever, I'm like, cool, like, you do you. But the coaches that I have worked with over the years that can put detail to the destination have not only got there and more, but they've done it in a way where they've not been derailed. And I think this is the biggest thing here, is that the vision is something that doesn't derail you and allows you to look at something and go, oh, shall I do that? And it's a fuck yes or a fuck no. Like, because if it's not complementing the vision, then it's a no. If it's complementing the vision, it's a yes. And I think people go, should I go and do that? Well, let's give it a go. I'm like, but you don't know whether it's right or wrong. So, vision's just it's such an exciting process, but like everything, it takes time to do it, and people just don't sit down and do it.
Absolutely. And I think the way I like to think about it, and by the way, for those listening, the reason I asked this question is you introduced me to the concept of formal vision planning and purpose. And I think that I wanted everyone else to hear it direct from source. But the way I like to think about it is a ship at sea, and exactly that, which direction are you headed in? Is it, are you headed north? Are you headed east? And as you kind of close in on that vision, it just gets tighter and tighter and tighter until you're heading on an exact, to 6 degrees each side bearing.
Well, Dr. John DeMartini said, you're the master of your destiny. You're the captain of your ship. And if you're the master of your destiny and you're a captain of a ship, if you're a captain of a ship, where are you going? Where's the compass pointing? And also, as an entrepreneur and as a CEO or a high performer with a team member, Tuesday I had a company-wide team meeting. And I said, okay, everybody ready? This is what 2026 is going to look like. And I got messages after the call go, wow, like this is going to be exciting. And then your role within the company to help us get there is this. But if you do that, you're going to get this. And this is how it's going to look. And they're like, wow, my leadership responsibility is to give you a star, right? My responsibility to my wife is to not just look at my wife as a person that just has a child for me and then stays at home. My wife is an essential business partner towards the architecture of our future. And so we sit down together and I say, good, like, where are we going? What are we doing? What are our holidays? Where are we going? What type of holidays? What type of travel do we want? What type of accommodation do we want? I want you to be an architect of that with me. We're buying a house at the moment and I want you to be an architect of that with me. What is it going to look like? Your responsibility is to help with the internals. What do you want it to look like? My wife needs a vision too. So John DeMartini always talked about this, and he's somebody that's been a huge mentor of mine over the years. But, as a man, and similarly females to males, my responsibility to my wife is to value her. And it's important that she values me. But if I don't know what she values or where she wants to get to, and she doesn't know what I value or where I want to get to, you basically have ships passing in the night. So I say to my wife, what would you love our life to look like in the next 2 years? I'd love our dream home. Well, there's a responsibility that I have. If you value the dream home, me investing just to get return on an investment without putting down the roots with the family home is not satisfying her values, because I promised that we would all go on this mission together. So, I think vision planning, when you are a man, you may have your business vision, but what about your family vision? Is your wife just going to sit there and if she's at home, just look after the kids and you're going to jolly and run your business? No. I want my wife to have some life at the end of her days and know that she contributed equally to the life that we've got. I may produce revenue, but she produces wealth and family. And so we are so equal. There's no hierarchy in male or female environment for me. It's like the wealth that she produces in the care that she does for my son and the environment, the life that she provides for us at home is an equal, if not more, responsibility than mine. She sleeps with him, I work, and then we come together and we do family. Like, vision planning is a together thing. And I feel that relationships with high performers become stretched when the high performer drifts into their own vision and doesn't go collaboratively with the vision as a family. So this is why I think vision planning isn't just about writing on a piece of paper where you want to go. It's It's a system for life.
And it allows you to plant your flag in the ground somewhere that is meaningful to you and those around you, to allow life to unfold towards it, or your reality to unfold towards it, I suppose.
Exactly.
That's what I heard from that.
I love
And
that.
I really appreciate that you touched on both the business and the family side of things, or the personal and the business side of things, because, and I suppose that this will lead into my next question, but this is a practice thing, isn't it? You know, when you first set a vision, it's the classic question of, you know, oh God, what do I want my life to look like? It sounds so broad and so scary. So tying in those two things, I want to be really tactical with this. So where can someone start if they're listening to this and they've never vision planned, or they've kind of, you know, maybe done a Pinterest board or something like that? How can someone start vision planning and, you know, kind of scale that forwards to a very brief version of what you do now?
Well, do you know what I think is wonderful? The first thing is to just allow yourself to be alone with your thoughts, to just dream. Now, there's a difference between a fantasy and a reality. So a fantasy would be something that you want to have happen in your life, but currently there is absolutely zero evidence of that ever coming true. I want to own a $30 million villa on the Miami beach, and no disrespect to anybody who is working at McDonald's, but you're working at McDonald's right now. But there is no evidence right now that you are developing your skills in the tech that you know you're going to make your millions from, or anything like that. It's a fantasy. There's nothing directive that gives concrete direction toward that becoming a reality. So whatever the vision is, I often start with a lot of people at about 1 to 2 years maximum. Because what I've found over the years, and I've mentored people for a long time, I've been coaching for 25 years, and it's the same thing with a lot of clients. Until you've really started to get your head into vision planning, trying to think 5 to 10 years ahead, you end up getting these bollocks visions that are just fantasies.
Yeah.
Right? Because people feel they've got to give you something. So what I would say is, first things first is, it's 2026. What would I like December to look like as if it's already happened? Where am I living? What am I doing? Who am I with? What have I achieved? And in doing this, what you actually start to do is future pace your mind to the fact that it's already happened. Like a manifestation. The Secret was the first personal development book that I read. Rhonda Byrne. It was given to me by a great client of mine at the time, Jane. And I don't believe in manifestation without action. Waking up, manifesting, writing down something that's already happened, but then doing the complete opposite. I think that manifesting is vision planning, talking to yourself as if something has already happened, but the true, real reality is taking the action towards the thing. So the first thing I do is put my step forward and say, what would I like the end of the year to happen? Now, the great thing is AI is wonderful at facilitating with this nowadays. So I literally would go into ChatGPT and I would sit there and I would say, look, you know, I want to create a really inspiring vision. But it's something I've never done before. And I really want you to create 50 questions that would really pull out of me the most inspiring and challenging thoughts. I don't want you to allow me to rest on my laurels. I want you to really deep dive and challenge me in all areas of my personal and professional life, my health, my happiness, my wealth. I create a wealth planner vision for my family for the next 7 years. And I went through 150 questions. And it took me 2 hours. Because the great thing about AI is that you can ask it to be really aggressive with the questioning. And then you can basically have all those questions and then sit there and then feed that into ChatGPT and then say at the end of it, now provide me a 600 to 800 word vision plan aligned with the answers that I've done. And you can do one or two things. You can use AI to prompt the questions, and then the questions it gives you, write it out yourself and just create a lovely manifesto of your work, or ask it to create something for you based on your own personal input. And because most people have never done real vision planning before, you utilize AI to help you to do it. And I used to write mine, but I've actually created an incredible GPT now that has 100 questions in it, which we use for our clients. So when a client joins our program, we put them through a 1-hour vision planning process, and they produce that. And what that does is I sit and I say, read it. How do you feel? And they go, I haven't had this much clarity in years. And I said, great, we can now start building your business. Because the problem we find with coaches we work with is they drift, they get distracted, right? And to avoid that drifting and distraction, we start off with clarity. So the first thing I do is just sit. And you know, another thing is stillness. No phone, no distractions. Take yourself somewhere quiet. Think deeply. Peace. I wake up at 5:45 and I don't see anybody till 8 a.m. And every 6 months, one of those sessions is my vision planning session. And I do 2 hours and I just sit and I let my brain not fantasize, just what would I be very proud of if I got to this point and had done this? And then I can condense my thoughts and I put some ideas down, and that enables me to then go and use my software to be able to help me to come up with something that is, gives me a North Star. I do it for business. I do it for personal. But I think one of the biggest things people could do is actually spend more time in there alone in their thoughts, because it's the time of stillness and peace and time away from your phone that your brain's creative. Got to remember, the more things you're looking at, TV, phone, tablets, whatever, the more you're consumed in someone else's reality rather than your own. And in a time of space, peace, I noticed it on a flight back to London. You know, I don't like getting on a flight and using Wi-Fi because I'm forced to either read a book or write something or type something. And this time I used my phone, and I was more tired when I landed than I left, because I allowed myself to drift into the reality of other people's lives. So I think definitely having peace and space and time at some point in every given day to be alone with your thoughts, and then allow yourself to visualize what you want and where you want to be. I don't think a lot of people give themselves enough permission to have what they want.
I think a lot of people probably make having time alone to yourself in that still moment a lot bigger than it is. You know, the classic one is a shower thought. And the reason that obviously it comes to us is because the active part of my mind is engaged elsewhere, you know, with being there. But by the nature of the environment, you can't really have anything else there. And I think it allows you to wonder. And I think it's a wonderful point in that at the heart of, you know, how to create a vision is allowing yourself to actually drift into that future and explore what that could be or what you would want that to be.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have got we talk about imposter syndrome and all this stuff. I mean, imposter syndrome to me, you're just subjecting somebody else's life into your own and getting confused that you should have their life, not your own. Imposter, you've basically allowed somebody else's life to become an imposter in your own brain. So what I mean by that is you're spending so much time looking at everybody else that the true nature of who you are has disappeared because you've lost, you've allowed somebody else's vision, somebody else's values to be subjected into your own mind, and you've become disconnected from yourself. That's as being disconnected from who you are and how wonderful you are is my definition of what an imposter syndrome is.
Yeah. And
if you can find the genius in yourself, you won't find any degree of imposter syndrome.
I understand what you mean, because external influence kind of muddies the waters of what is you and what are you feeling, because it's just all input, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's all noise. But I think that point about being an imposter or feeling like an imposter, sorry, is really, really important, because I think what puts most people off of vision planning is honestly the confronting the reality that if you want to achieve, if you want to live a life by design, it requires a level of work. I think that's the difference between, I would think of it as, lottery dreams. Or what do you want? Oh, well, if I won the lottery. And that just robs you of all agency because you cannot control that. Whereas, and this was a huge breakthrough that I had when you introduced, Ailish and myself to this concept of, well, what do you want life to look like? Well, yeah, we want to grow the business. No. What do you want life to look like? Because if your current life can be facilitated with your current business, we need to work on different things to, if you want, that $30 million mansion. Why?
I think that there's a lot of coaches that we talk to. They want the 5K, the 10K, the 50K months. It's like, great, but why? There's no ability to articulate it. I put a post out today talking about mission. No one's got a mission. My heart fills with pride and joy when I think about what I'm building and why I'm building it. It's the easiest thing to stop any outside noise. Is to know thyself. And I remember, I can't remember, I'm not going to paraphrase with the quote, but the man who knows what they want and what's enough is a fulfilled man.
Yeah.
Because everybody's chasing more, but very often no one can actually tell you if they're truly deeply fulfilled.
Yeah.
And so when you have a vision plan, you know what you're working towards. I've met very, very few people in life who would say, I'm fulfilled with what I've got. Like, I want more. And I'm like, but have you stopped for a minute and actually looked at like how wonderful what you've already created is? Because, I think there's beauty in that, enjoying what's already been, and then also getting excited for what's to come. And you said something a minute ago. It was like, life by design. We're always chasing the next without really understanding the design element of what we're doing. We just go on a hamster wheel of either an employed role or a self-employed role or a freelance business or whatever you have for your own business. You just go on this crusade or journey for more without being able to truly articulate what it is that you're working towards. That, enjoying what's already been.
I thought about this actually, because I think a lot of the time people are in, whether it's justified or not, survival mode.
Yeah.
And they are just constantly thinking about the here and the now. And obviously we've been talking all about stretching off into the future, but
yeah.
I think a key part of this is obviously reflection. Reflection in terms of exactly as you just said, appreciating where you've come from, or understanding where you've come from if you feel like you're not moving forwards, or even being able to know if you're not moving forwards, and sense checking where you are in relation to this flag you've planted in the sand.
I think we have a lot of, I talk to a lot of people about this, naivety. I was talking to my wife the other day, and we're wrestling at the moment with education. Wrestling with education, not to the point where we're frustrated, where we're weighing up a decision. What are we going to do with education? Well, I could be naive, much like what we're talking about right now. I think people are naive to their own feelings, their emotions, and the depth of personal development could open up their true being, that they just go, no, I'm not going to. I would say that some people could live, exist, and die not knowing that there is an ability to understand their mind. And they could live an amazing life by understanding their mind more. Most people live a whole life without actually understanding themselves. And most people live their lives without understanding the physiology and the health of their body. Most people live their life by just sending their child to school because your grandfather did, because your father did, and because everybody went to university. Let's all do it. But, okay, stop for a second and take time for the next 6 months to study homeschooling curriculum, study alternative education, engineer the life that you want for your family. Does that look different? Well, okay, I could guess my way through it, or I could study my way through it. So for me, I'm in a phase of now studying homeschooling education to make a comparable between the modern system and homeschooling, because I want to be informed. And I wanted to be informed about my mind. It was like, if my mind was not helping me to be fulfilled at the age of 23 and I was lost, if I studied the mind and actually corrected the thought processes in my mind, how much more powerful could I be? If I wasn't happy with how my body looked, could I add 15 kilos of muscle? Possibly, but now I need to study how to add muscle. If I didn't like the revenue that I was making, could I study more about marketing and lead generation to be an entrepreneur and build my own business? Yes. So when you actually look at the naivety of people, everything is learnable. Like, it blows, everything is learnable, right? So with ChatGPT and all these systems, I was listening to a video the other day talking about homeschooling curriculum, and my wife's got no idea about it. And so we're now informing ourselves of, is there an alternative that's a possibility, right? So she studied personal development before we met together. She's a graphic designer. She then studied web development. She then ended up with a self-employed, working for herself and traveling the world with me. Like, that's where I believe that people think that they get this hand. Okay, cool. Have you ever written a vision plan so your life could be different? They get, I'm in a job, I can't get out of it. That's rubbish. I'd love my life to look different, but I can't. Well, why don't you in the evenings study AI and then build a course on AI? Why can't you study something else? Now, the funny thing is, we're talking to high performers, entrepreneurs. Like, every single person listening to this right now could study a field or an area of that they're lacking in their life and excel to the same degree that they've already excelled in what they're doing. And that's where, for me, I would say one of my proudest things in my life is how well studied I am in the things that I enjoy, love, and I'm passionate about. And that what that's done is it's brought incredible opportunities, incredible relationships, but it's pushed me outside of this, what I believe to be an average world of existence, to more of a high performers world, which means, like, I'm not stimulated by conversation that's not about growing the mind. I'm not interested in conversations just sitting about how much money someone's made. I'm interested in listening to how well developed somebody is, and their spirituality and their health and their energy and their relationships. And yes, of course, finances and investments, but I'm interested in really a breadth of conversation, you know, and that's what makes me realize that, you know, I enjoy conversation that isn't naive and one dimensional, you know, and where this is all kind of come from is the fact that you and I were discussing, you know, possibilities and options. You know, that's where, even going down to the beginning of vision plan, it's like, if you have a vision plan and what comes out of it is you want something different, well, in between the thing that you had and the thing that you want is knowledge and action. So if you wanted to leave your job, what knowledge would you need? This. Good. You got 6 months to study it. Change. Right. So, you know, I look at this in business. I look at this in coaching, in fat loss, and in health, and you'll see this with the own world that you're in.
100%. And what I love is there were so many things where, you know, you can see me nodding my head, and I know that obviously part of this is I'm a byproduct of your teachings, and it's, you know, that was earlier on, and so I've still got the same kind of nuclei where a lot of these ideas have come from. But this hits directly to the heart of the show. I believe everyone is and can be made for more. I feel like there's no circumstance that defines the or limits what you can become, and it is, I say this all the time, that everything is just a learned skill. And it's funny that you mention it, because Ailish and I were literally talking about this in the car earlier. But there's a humility in being open to knowledge that I think you have an abundance of, just being open to learning new things, and, you know, the humility that comes with understanding that you don't know everything, obviously. And, you know, as time goes on, I'm sure you've felt this, but the more you learn, the less you know. And
The last year of my life, year and a half, studying AI. we've integrated a huge amount in the company. And I look at it and go, okay, wow, it's come in. What do? I learn it. The biggest lesson I learned in my life was writing my book. Because at the beginning of writing a book, it feels like an obscenely difficult task. But you get advised that there's a certain amount of words that you need to write for a good book. And then you reverse engineer that back into how many days do I want to write a book? For me, it was 3. It was 6 hours a week, 2 hours a day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 till 9. That was my target. And then I worked out, okay, well, if there's, I think it was, I can't remember how many words it was. I remember in a second. But then I worked it out that it was going to take me 9 months, 8 months. So now I've got a time frame. I've got knowledge that I have. And I've got 3 days at X amount of words.
But you've hit straight to the problem-solving mind of actually, which, you know, as a health professional, that perfectly positions you for, which is X goal is, you know, however many, it's X value, which given the time we have, we just break it down and break it down and break it down, accommodate for, you know, diversions, rewrites, things like that. But I love how you've just made that, and I suppose it's the same with any vision, isn't it? You know, what is the end result? Because we've talked about a lot about how to get there, how to actually think of, you know, the life you want to lead, but working backwards from that, that's exactly it, isn't it? You quantify it, whatever that may be. Your chalet will be X amount of money in X amount of time, and you just reverse engineer that with the amount of work that you can do and the increase that's needed to achieve that.
And it also goes alongside with, you know, whatever destination you want to get to, whatever is required, it's just a matter of time. You know, the funny thing is, we have this whole thing about ADHD and one thing and another, and I'm not going to get into the psychology of ADHD. It's not my special field. But no one could disagree with the fact that even ADHD, anyone with ADHD, is able to be attentive and focused with the things that they love. So it's not a learning difficulty, in my opinion. It's a values-based deficiency in some ways, right?
Yeah.
So
it's disparity of attention.
If you love it, lean into it. I have got zero memory retention around cooking. I order everything. If Marshall's to talk to me about cooking, I'm like, I've got zero memory retention around administration. I have a family office admin. I don't do visas, Emirates IDs, car insurance. Like, even buying the house, I was like, who can do it all for me? I just struggle, but I don't value it. I know I can get other people to value it for me. But on the flip side, every morning at the moment, I'm writing a new course. 5:45, jump out of bed, sometimes 5:30, but within 10 minutes, I'm writing. And I'm planning and I'm designing. So it's like, I know where my creative genius lies. But do you know what? At the beginning of the course, I looked at it, and this is why I went back to writing the book. Every time I look at something that I've got a lot of work to do, I look at when's the deadline, reverse engineer like my book, and I don't care how hard it is or what I've got to do or what I've got to study. All I do is set a time frame, and it doesn't matter whether I've got to go and learn a new skill or a new system or whatever. I just get started.
And I think you can use the book, for example, which is an incredible achievement, and it's actually a very good book as well. For anyone listening, it's called Level Up, isn't it?
Yep. And I wrote that, 4 years ago, I think.
Was it that soon? I just remember ordering it on Amazon. But I think you can use the book anyone at home can use that and just swap it out for any meaningful achievement to you.
Yeah. It was just an example, right? Yeah.
No, of course. But, you know, a really good example that I've often used with people is, you know, a lot of people have degrees or a lot of people have A-levels. And in the context that we're speaking of, you have worked for X amount of time, you've ticked X amounts of boxes, and you have produced that result. Mm-hmm. Now, if you tell someone who's doing their GCSEs about, I have a degree in, engineering or psychology, they find that really impressive. So it's all about the distance to the thing. And once you've actually achieved it, like I'm sure you could write 2-3 books now easily.
Yeah, it's the distance to destination as far as I sort of could. So whatever the distance to destination, I think a lot of people in the whole idea of studying a topic, they go, shit, I just don't know it. And I'm like, but what if you gave yourself a 6 months target to know it, and you give yourself a grading of how well you know it? If somebody said to me 25 years ago, you're going to join the fitness industry and you're going to study X, Y, Z, then teach the industry, I probably with overwhelm would have panicked. But if you said to me, you're going to do a 3-month personal training course, and at that point, even though you're not going to have a lot of knowledge, it's going to give you a ticket to get on the gym floor, I was like, well, wow, I can't wait to get on the gym floor. So I put my head down for 3 months, passed all my exams, but at school, I failed them all. At school, I failed maths and biology, chemistry and biology. And I couldn't to this day remember anything that you taught me at school. But then I realized I wanted to be a personal trainer, and I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding from start to finish, Chris Aceto's Nutrition Principles for Bodybuilding. Then I read a physiology and biology, biochemistry book. And then before you know it, 8 months later, I'm teaching seminars around the UK on these very subjects. So this comes back to it. It's like, whether you're a high performer, employed high performer, self-employed high performer, whatever, isn't it mental that whatever you want is just simply a learned skill away? And that's what I remember all the time in my head. And I'm so glad that I put myself, the book to me was not about the impact that it made. It was also what it taught me about being able to achieve something that you once thought was unachievable.
And there's so much power and agency in just understanding and breaking that down to literally anything is a case of learning and time frame. It's a skill issue. And, you could be, as an extreme example, you could be 5'5", but if you practiced every day, if you trained all day, every day, your entire life was basketball, I'm sure that you could succeed. There's been people in the NBA who have been 5'3", as a silly example.
I think there's a degree of obviously with business. I was listening to an interview with Tony Robbins the other day, and everything that's difficult will always be difficult until you build the muscle. For example, doing a hack squat with 3 plates is horrible. But if you just start with 1 plate and then you micro improve that, if you stick to it and make micro improvements, you will end up on 3 plates. And one of the things that he said was like, everything that you want is an untrained muscle. And the more that you hit head on into the uncomfortable, you build the muscle. And so you've just got to put the reps in and focus on progress, and it compounds over time. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people do is they stop before they've been able to build the muscle. And that's a whole nother story.
And I think the heart of that story that you just spoke about in terms of failing at school, and it's one that's really common amongst successful entrepreneurs like yourself, is that, you failed, quote unquote, failed in one very small, very inconsequential arena. And I think a lot of people, that happens to a lot of people. And what happens is they take that for, I am not good, full stop. You had a passion which you pursued, and you found real, incredible talent and competence in that thing. And then I think that fed back into your belief that you can actually achieve these things. And what's inspiring about that is that could happen in any realm. And that's what I love about this, new era of entrepreneurship that we live in, is that even the most minute, niche, obscure interests, like the Francois, I can't remember his name, the train fella that has the camera on his head and loves trains. He's made a career out of being really, really interested in trains. And
I
that's
mean,
the thing he loves. Yeah.
this is why right now it's challenging me with the whole parental schooling thing, is because I'm looking at that and going, well, my son could make whatever he wants to make out of life simply by being interested and curious enough with one thing and then wanting to turn it into his thing. And I listened to this just interesting Daniel Priest said the other day when I was at school, and he said this: being a disruptive kid was a very bad thing.
I think I listened to the same.
Did you listen to the 5-minute video?
Yeah. And I heard him speak about this on Mike Thurston's podcast as well. In the
context of this, he said, if you were disruptive back then you were pushed to one side. But today, with influencers and people like Jake Paul, all these guys doing things that they're doing on socials, they are extremely disruptive, but worth mega millions and living a life that most people would be or are envious of.
And I think the important thing there is they have the capacity to do so much good off the back of it as well.
Yeah, always.
You know, charitable endeavors, philanthropy. And I think that's something that people often forget is the volume. It's disproportionate returns that people can have in, you know, it's something I'm really, really passionate about as well, as having greater impact, and that compounds because the people you help other people. And this is a conversation we've had, because I know that's one of the reasons you love doing what you do, is it's such a, you know, I can guarantee you've influenced the lives of probably hundreds of thousands of people globally in terms of their health by influencing thousands of coaches and training and helping them grow their influence, if that makes sense.
Well, look, I mean, initially we had 250 personal training sessions a week out of my gym.
Wow.
And with those, you know, personal training sessions we did through the gym, average, each of the people that we trained each week, let's say 250 sessions was 100 clients, some of them 3 times a week, let's say 80 clients. If 80 clients had 3 children, 2,400 people.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're 240 people, and then you're multiplying that by the amount of people that they know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And that's just your direct influence, not even with Coaching Concierge, because obviously that influence has just been massively amplified, you know, ourselves included. Of a lot of the people that you've worked with have had really substantial impact and audience and been able to help so many clients. It's something that I definitely feel like I picked up from you, is that perception of knock-on impact and the value that you can bring to other people. But I am conscious of the time, and I think that there's the whole conversation on your career and the longevity of it. Obviously, as you mentioned, is, you know, quarter of a century of being in the top 1%, and that I really want to dive into. But just to bring this in, so I've borrowed this tradition from Diver CEO, where you have questions from previous guests.
Yeah.
And quickly, this was left by a previous guest, and it's not chronological, but by being on the show, you have achieved a lot. How do you know when enough is enough?
Right. How do I know when enough is enough? I think from a business perspective, how do I know when enough is enough? I love Sheikh Mohammed for his phrase that is, excellence doesn't have a finish line. And so I think rephrasing how do you know when enough is enough goes back to what we started this call with vision planning. How do you know what you're working towards is enough? Because it's aligned to your vision plan. And therefore, if I get to the end of the year and I've achieved a goal that I set, that's enough. And for me to have done that and to accomplish that, I have a vision. Let's say your vision is to go from, you know, $250,000 a year to $500,000 a year. Let's say your goal is to go from 100 clients to 200 clients. Let's say your goal is to go to a chalet in Switzerland. If whatever is on your vision plan and you work towards that and that excites you throughout the year, then you've done enough. And you should be incredibly proud of you actually achieving your vision. And then once you say at the end of the year, I've done that, that's incredible. But it didn't stretch me as much as it could have done. Then you create 2027's vision plan. But I do think it's important, like I say with every coach, is if you've achieved what you set out to do, that's enough. But most people get to the end of the year and have achieved it, but it's not enough. That creates a lot of friction and unfulfillment. And if you don't have a vision plan, no wonder you get to the end of the year and you've not done enough. Because you've got nothing measurable.
You have no definition for what enough would be, no. And you've got solely external noise as your measuring stick.
I don't think enough needs to be defined as, when you get to a certain revenue level, it's enough, or you get to a certain physique, there's enough. Because I think by the true nature of human beings, as a high-performing individual, we crave progress. But enough for me is also, I believe, and I've learned this many times over the years from Dr. John DeMartini, that we all are striving for fulfillment, not just in one area of life. I'm striving for fulfillment in my health, my physique, my relationships, my family, my knowledge, my skills, my expertise, my career, wealth, all of these different areas. So it's a constant evolution, growth and development of all these areas. And when I'm achieving my personal goals, that's enough.
I think that's a wonderful response, because I thought you'd enjoy pulling apart that question. And what I take from that is it's a highly personal and moving goalpost of a thing. And as long as you are happy with where you're going, then the achieving of that will be satisfactory for you. I really respect and appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time and your insight. And I very much look forward to doing this again. And where can everyone find you?
Jake, they can find me at Mark J. Coles on Instagram. And it's the simplest route to seeing everything that I do. It's where I share my life, my journey, the coaches that we work with, the impact that we do, my views, beliefs. And it's the great kind of gateway into what we do. And if you want to watch some longer form, look at Mark Coles on YouTube.
And you've got a podcast. You are the CEO of Coaching Concierge. And obviously we mentioned your book, Level Up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Coaching Concierge is my baby as a company. But, the gateway into everything that we do is through my Instagram. And that really just shows you what we do. I mean, if you're intrigued to understand the world of building a personal training business and brand or online, my book, Level Up. But thank you, Jake. It's been really, really enjoyable.
I've had a wonderful time. And I just want to publicly thank you, because obviously I know in many conversations over the years, I've come back to it time and time again, but truly the shift, the absolute, I would say, quantum leap that occurred from having your support and influence is absolutely put me on the path where we are now.
Well, you guys are wonderful people with a wonderful daughter, and wonderful business, and you're great human beings. And I'm very grateful that you've invited me on today.
Thank you. Right. We'll speak to you soon. And thank you again.
All right, mate. Take care.